That loaf of sandwich bread sitting in your kitchen might contain dough conditioners other countries walked away from years ago. I didn't run a lab test. I checked the ingredient panel and cross-referenced it against public regulatory records, watchdog databases, and what the EU, the UK, and Canada still allow in bread. Some of what I found is legal here and restricted almost everywhere else. Today, I'm pulling 8 loaves off the shelf and checking exactly that, then showing you 2 that skip it completely. The priciest, most artisan-looking loaf on this list is not one of the 2 that's clean. A quick, honest standard before we get started, because the framing genuinely matters here. This isn't about mold or spoilage dates, and it isn't about anything being secretly poisonous. It's about which dough conditioners and preservatives are still legal in the US bread aisle, while the EU, the UK, and Canada moved away from several of them, mostly under a precautionary rule. If a substance can't be proven safe at current levels using current science, it doesn't get used at all. The FDA runs on a different default. If something already has an authorization and the evidence of harm isn't conclusive, it stays on shelves, while the review continues in the background, sometimes for years. None of this makes any of these loaves illegal. It just makes some of the marketing feel a lot less honest than the ingredient panel sitting underneath it. Keep this in mind. The same 3 or 4 unfamiliar names keep showing up across almost this entire aisle, on cheap loaves and expensive ones alike. Once you learn to spot them, you genuinely can't unsee them. Number 8. Great value white bread. Rock bottom price, the loaf bought on autopilot for school lunches without a second glance at the bag, sitting in the same spot in the same aisle every single week. Bread at this price point typically leans on calcium propionate as a preservative and DATEM among its dough conditioners, and it's worth confirming on the actual loaf in front of you, since formulas can shift between bakeries and batches. That means the cheapest loaf on this entire list, and the priciest one further up the shelf, can end up running the exact same conditioner list. That's not a bargain problem unique to the cheap shelf. That's an everyone problem, and it starts right here at the bottom of the price ladder before we've even gotten to the brands you actually recognize. That's the baseline. The next one has 100 years of nostalgia doing the selling instead of a low price tag. Number 7. Wonder Classic White Bread. Since 1921, the bread that made Wonder a household name, the one packed in lunchboxes for generations and still sitting in the exact same spot in the bread aisle today, decades after most of us first noticed it. Turn this one around and the dough conditioners listed include calcium iodate, sitting right alongside calcium propionate as the preservative doing the actual heavy lifting. Iodate-based dough conditioners are exactly the kind of ingredient international expert panels have specifically advised against using in flour treatment, over real concerns about how much iodine people end up consuming across their whole diet, not just from bread. That's not a preservative quietly doing one simple job. That's a small chemistry set working inside a loaf named after a warm, nostalgic feeling. That's the nostalgia brand handled. The next one wears almost the same conditioner list, under an even more trusted name. Number 6. Sara Lee. Classic white bread. No artificial colours and no artificial flavours sits proudly on the front of the bag. The kind of specific, confident claim that makes you stop reading right there and just toss it in the cart. Turn it over though, and the label lists preservatives. Calcium propionate, sorbic acid, with DATEM sitting among the dough conditioners as well. No artificial colours is a real true claim, printed honestly and technically accurately right there on the packaging. It's just answering a completely different question than the one you actually walked into this aisle caring about. The label isn't lying to you anywhere. It's just betting that you stop reading before you get to the part that actually matters to you. That's a partial truth wrapped around a beloved name. The next one charges more money and makes the exact same quiet trade. Number 5. Pepperidge Farm Farmhouse Hearty White Bread. Crafted with premium ingredients, a noticeably higher price tag than every loaf we've covered so far, farmhouse branding that practically smells like an actual bakery instead of a factory line. Here's where it gets worse. The label lists calcium propionate and sorbic acid to extend freshness, plus DATEM, the exact same core combination already sitting in the budget loaves underneath it on this same shelf. You paid more money for the word farmhouse, printed in a comforting font on a bag. You did not pay for a genuinely different ingredient deck behind that word. That's a premium price funding a completely standard issue back label. That's the priciest letdown so far on this entire list. The next one isn't even sold as bread at all. It's sold as a treat, which is exactly why nobody bothers flipping the bag over. Number 4. King's Hawaiian Original Hawaiian Sweet Rolls. Soft, sweet, island branded. The roll that shows up at every cookout and holiday table, looking more like a celebration than a grocery store staple sitting on a regular shelf. That festive shape and tropical branding is doing real work on you before you've read a single word of the ingredient list, the same way a birthday candle distracts you from checking what's actually inside the cake. It's worth checking this bag's current preservative and dough conditioner listing directly, since rolls in this general category typically carry a similar conditioner profile to ordinary sliced bread, just dressed up in a completely different shape. Nobody flips over a bag shaped like a party favour. That's a shape doing the distracting for an entire product line. The next one distracts you with a completely different trick, a shape that barely even reads as bread at all. Number 3. Thomas's English Muffins. Nooks and Crannies is doing some serious brand work here. The specialty shape and texture that makes this feel like it belongs to a completely different category from ordinary sliced sandwich bread sitting one shelf over. It doesn't. A different shape is not a different ingredient aisle, no matter how distinct the texture feels when it's toasting and filling your kitchen with that familiar smell. And it's worth checking this current label's preservative and conditioner list the exact same way you'd check any ordinary loaf. Shoppers mentally file muffins away from bread entirely, which is exactly why this particular bag gets less scrutiny at the shelf than it probably should. A different shape bought this one a pass it never actually earned. That's a format dodge working quietly. The next one dodges with a small bakery name instead of a shape. Number 2. Martin's Potato Bread. A beloved, slightly premium name that feels like it comes from an actual small bakery down the road, rather than a massive factory line running around the clock. It's worth checking its current preservative panels directly, since home-style branding at this kind of scale usually runs on the exact same industrial preservation methods as everything else already covered further up on this list, whatever the packaging might suggest about small batch baking. Separately, and worth knowing regardless of what the preservatives turn out to be, published sugar content comparisons have flagged this line as running noticeably higher in sugar than other sandwich breads, slice for slice. Homestyle is a feeling the packaging works hard to sell you. The ingredient panel is a fact, and the two don't always agree with each other. That's a smaller name playing the exact same game as the giants above it. The final one is the biggest name in this entire aisle, and it's been playing this game the longest of anyone here. Number 1. Bimbo white bread. This is the name behind an enormous share of what's actually sitting on US bread shelves right now, the parent company quietly standing behind several of the brands already named on this list today, even when its own name never appears on the front of those bags. Its own flagship loaf typically carries the same calcium, propionate, and DATEM combination running through nearly everything we've covered so far, and it's worth confirming on the exact loaf sitting in your own store before you assume anything. By now, the list itself isn't really the surprise anymore. The size of the list is the actual story here. If nearly every familiar name in this entire aisle is running some version of the same play, here's what the two genuine exceptions actually look like sitting on the shelf. Okay, 8 loaves down, and I want to be clear about something before we move on, because it matters. None of them are illegal, and none of them are secretly poisoning anyone who eats a sandwich for lunch. They're just leaning on additives that regulators in other countries looked at and decided weren't worth keeping around. There's a way to check this before you buy, and it's not a lab test. It's the ingredient panel you're already holding standing in the aisle. Here are the two that skip the whole pattern entirely. Buy 1, Dave's Killer Bread 100% whole wheat. This loaf's current ingredient panel uses organic vinegar and organic cultured wheat flour to hold off mold, naturally, instead of calcium, propionate, or DATEM. No calcium anything on this label, no iodate anywhere in sight, nothing borrowed from the conditioner list running through the first 8 entries on this countdown. It's USDA organic, non-GMO, project verified, and by retailer sales data, it's currently the best-selling organic bread in the entire country. This is what the ingredient panel actually looks like when a bakery chooses not to reach for the chemistry set to solve a shelf life problem. Buy 2, Nature's Own Butter Bread. This brand built its entire identity around one specific, repeated promise. No artificial preservatives, no artificial colours, no artificial flavours, printed the same way on nearly every bag they sell. It's worth confirming the current full label matches that promise loaf for loaf, batch for batch, but this is a claim the brand has made consistently for years across its whole lineup, not a one-time marketing stunt cooked up for a single product. This is a brand that put the promise right on the front of the bag in plain, everyday language, and then actually backed it up on the back, where it counts most and where most shoppers never bother looking. 8 loaves on this list lean on nostalgia, festive shapes, farmhouse language, or small bakery branding to keep you from ever flipping the bag over, while the same handful of dough conditioners keep showing up underneath, regardless of price or packaging or how the front of the bag makes you feel. 2 loaves prove you can skip every single one of them without losing shelf life or sacrificing the sandwich you actually wanted to make. This isn't just a bread aisle pattern either. The same trick, comforting language up front and a chemistry set ingredient panel on the back, shows up in tortillas, hot dog buns, and packaged pastries, basically anywhere flour needs a long shelf life to survive the trip from factory to kitchen. Once you learn to scan for calcium propionate, DATEM, and iodate instead of trusting the word farmhouse or a festive shape on the bag, you start noticing this same exact pattern in aisles you never once suspected. The front of the bag sells you a feeling you already wanted to believe. The back of the bag, in 3 or 4 unfamiliar words most people skip right past, tells you what's actually keeping it soft on the shelf.